Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today, we're going to be looking at the most ridiculous, overpowered Pokemon cards in the history of the Pokemon trading card game. And no, I don't think that is an exaggeration. These are all ridiculous. Now, as a side note, no, they are not legal for tournament play. They never have been. Firstly, they are all jumbo oversized cards. And secondly, they're all absolutely ridiculous. So starting off then in the year 2000, the Power of One movie was released. And there was a store campaign where you could get Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos. Now, it had 120 HP, which I know doesn't seem like a lot, but when you consider that the base set Charizard came in with 120 HP, and that was the big sought after stage 2, I'm hoping you can realise that actually this is somewhat ridiculous. Not by today's standards, but by the standards of the time. And then for 1 fire, 1 lightning and 1 water energy, it did 200 damage, and you shuffled Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos into your deck. And 200 damage at the time may as well have been a billion damage. We were years away from the 200 HP Wailord EX. This was a huge card that did huge damage, and it was, not to put too fine a point on it, redonkadonk. Then we actually had a gigantic gap. For some reason, the Pokemon Company was just like, ooh, super overpowered giant cards, nah, we cool. But then, when Zoroark Master of Illusion was coming out, there was a tour where you could go along, and it was in the year 2011, so we're talking 11 years later, though it was actually 14 years later. The free birds were 97 in Japan. And we got Zorua and Celebi. Now, Zorua and Celebi doesn't look that much on the face of it. It's got 90 HP, which is not particularly impressive for the time. But here's the thing. 1 darkness, 1 grass energy. Each player switches with his or her opponent. Then each player continues to play the game using his or her opponent's cards. You get up, you swap seats, and then you carry on playing with your opponent's deck. You could take the worst possible deck along to a tournament, sit down opposite someone playing a really good deck, and then you're like, who is who? And then you get to play their ridiculous Tag Team GX deck, and they get to play your pointlessly terrible deck. As a side note, over on my other channel, Wassy Plays, we cover Keyforge fairly extensively. That is a unique deck game whereby when you buy a deck you can't make any changes. That's the deck with which you play. And there is a format in Keyforge called Reversal, where instead of playing with your deck every round, you play against your deck every round. So you sit down for every round, swap decks, and play with them. We don't do that in Pokemon, but Zorua and Celebi was ridiculous. And then in the same year, Zoroark is coming along like, yo, what up? It was Zoroark and legendary Pokemon. Well, really Dialga, Groudon, and Rayquaza, it looks like. And for 1 darkness, 1 fighting, 1 metal, and 1 colorless energy, it did 1,000 damage. Yeah. That makes Articuno, Moltres, and Zapdos' 200 damage look just a little bit pathetic. I mean, there are 2 Pokemon that hold the highest HP of standard legal cards, and they are Magikarp and Wailord, and the free birds, who all come in as Tag Team GXs with 300 HP. Well, this was years before, and it's coming in doing 1,000 damage. 500 HP, 1,000 damage. When I said the most ridiculously overpowered cards ever, I want Josh near, ladies and gentlemen. That was right. Now, the next one was actually a set of free cards that came around with the release of Black and White, and they actually came around in 2011. So apparently, after an 11-year break, the Pokemon Company were like, yowza, we need to get some jumbo cards going. And it was blank Snivy, blanks Oshawott, and of course the best of the three, blanks Tepig. Now, these were ridiculous cards, and they had 200 HP, which to be fair isn't even that ridiculous. That's lower than a lot of GXs nowadays. And they actually all did different things. Snivy for 3 grass energy did 100 damage and completely healed itself. Oshawott for 3 water energy did 100 damage and 100 to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And Tepig did for 3 fire energy 200 damage and discarded all fire energy attached to the Pokemon. So these weren't quite as ridiculous. They were still fairly overpowered. They're still 200 HP basics. They're still very good attacks, especially for 2011. But they weren't quite at the redonkadonk level of the Zoroark. But make no mistake about it, they were pretty beefy. Now apparently all the excitement from 2011 made the Pokemon Company a little bit tired, because we then didn't get any more until 2018. So after an 11-year gap, we then took a 7-year gap, and then we got rolling with some legendary Pokemon. Raikou, Entei, and Suicune. 500 HP, and then for 1 fire, 1 water, 1 lightning energy, it did 1,000 damage. And then it reads, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune embark on a year of legendary adventure. And you might notice that is extremely similar to Zoroark and the legendary Pokemon, same HP, same damage, except it's actually 1 energy cheaper. So, not quite the redonkulous power creep we've seen in other areas of the game, but you're still paying 1 less energy to do a frankly ridiculous 1,000 damage, so, you know, it's still pretty good. And then later on in that same year, it was the year of the legendary Pokemon, we got Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus. Now, worth also noting that these cards had no weakness and no retreat cost, which is kind of ridiculous if I'm honest with you. I mean, they've already got 500 HP, they've already got 1,000 damage that they're doing. Giving them no weakness and no retreat as well just seems, well, almost over the top. And Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus was again completely over the top. It had 500 HP, and for a lightning, a fighting, and a colourless, it did 1,000 damage. So very, very similar to Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, in that it's exactly the same card except for the energy cost. You take out a fire and a water, you add in a fighting and a colourless, because then they match the typings of those Pokemon. And then slightly later on in 2018, we see Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem, and it's the same kind of deal. Now, it turns into a dragon Pokemon rather than colourless, which is interesting because the other two were colourless. But remember that all of these are dragons, so it totally fits. Once again, there's no weakness, there's no retreat cost. Once again, we got 500 HP. Worth noting, of course, that colourless hits nothing for weakness and neither really does dragon, so boo. And then for 1 fire, 1 water, 1 lightning energy, it does 1,000 damage, and Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem embark on a year of legendary adventure. Well, of course they do, because all of the others already had. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are the most ridiculous, overpowered Pokemon cards we've ever had. I find it very strange. I didn't realise this until I did the research for the video, that we started off in the year 2000. We took an 11-year break before we got 5 more in 2011, and then we took a 7-year break before we got 3 more in 2018. Given that we are 1 year into the break, I think it's safe to say it's going to be a couple more years until we get more of these, but then again, we can never really predict what Pokemon are going to do now, can we? What we can do, however, is tell me what you think about all of these cards, which ones you've got, and whether you've ever tried playing them in a deck for a bit of fun. Go nuts in the comment section, but please do remember the rule: Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.